We're on.
Yep.
Welcome tonight to our filmmakers and actors gathering. 100 years of brave love. We've been filming Katherine Mansfield stories, setting them in the present day. And what would Gerri Kimber and Beryl Fairfield be doing in the present day? Talk show hosts, of course. And tonight, they are to host our talk show tonight. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. That's what we like. Gerri Kimber, played by Daniel Pujol, and Beryl Fairfield, played by Alexander Kaur.
Hello. Thank you for a lovely introduction from a character who's something of a television personality himself.
Thank you. And Gerri Kimber, Captain of Industry over here, billionaire kingmaker, oil company chief, and the go-to global warming skeptic for every TV show. Here's William Evershed, played by Nicole Munro.
Hello. Right. I own it. I own this station. I own this mic. You can't have it.
Yeah, but other people have voices. Other people have voices too. Surely, with a billion cars driving around, there's got to make a difference to the atmosphere. I mean, you just can't have all that human industrial activity without global warming.
I'm afraid to say that all that happens is we just cut down on the heating costs.
Cut down on the heating costs. That makes no difference at all. That makes no difference to carbon dioxide emissions. Come on, do the math.
Moving right along, joining us now we have Valerie Brandon, played by Paula Ray.
Hello. Valerie is a central character in the story Brave Love by Katherine Mansfield. Did you say, dear, that you are the manipulative, ruthless villain of this piece?
Excuse me? I think, if anything, I'm misunderstood. Only out of necessity if I come across that way, and only on the surface. Under the surface, I am deeply conflicted.
Right, well, I can say at this point it is a story with a love triangle, to put it mildly. Evershed and Valerie make 2 out of 3, and to complete the agony and the tension and the passion, meet Mr. Passionate himself, Mitka, played by Atul Kumar. Do we have Atul with us at the moment?
He cannot make it tonight, but he is on standby to speak to us by phone.
Oh.
Okay, we'll see if we can get through to Atul shortly. I believe he's overseas at the moment, is he?
No, in New Zealand.
He's in New Zealand, okay. On the line now.
We're trying to summon Mitka through the ether.
The suspense is palpable, isn't it?
He's got a very good voicemail.
Okay.
It's number and message, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible, or you can even text me as well.
There you are.
Let's
There's
text him some questions.
the guest appearance from the Mitka played by Atul Kumar. Fine acting performance on his voicemail message, and as we'll see later on, this extends to a fine performance as a sensitive character.
Lovely voice, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
Perhaps we can text him a few questions a little later.
Yeah.
Right, well, a bit of a come down now to this next actor who plays a bit part as a paramedic for all of about 5 seconds. However, John Calder also makes himself reasonably useful as a filmmaker, director, writer and producer, so we'll humour him for now.
Thank you.
Just as long as he continues to amuse us.
We now do we have on Skype Gerri?
Yes,
We do.
right here.
Oh, this is Gerri here. Yes, excuse me. Right. We now have a special guest skyping from the UK, Gerri Kimber.
Gerri Kimber, you've been telling all your women you're estranged from Mrs. Kimber, and you will never see her again. She looks pretty visible to me.
Gerri Kimber.
Sleazebag.
Kimber, with an I, not related. Gerri Kimber is a senior lecturer in English at Northampton University, to give her full status. And Gerri is the series editor of the Edinburgh University Press edition of the collected works of Katherine Mansfield.
Okay, obviously too intelligent to have any connection with you.
Gerri, moving right along. In your book, Brave Love gets a positive introduction and equal billing with the other stories. That is quite a change from the postscript and special category treatment from other editors regarding Brave Love. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. The story wasn't published until 1972. Lots of Mansfield's stories were published during her lifetime and then after her death by her husband, John Middleton Murray. But Brave Love, because it's such a weird story, we can come on and talk about that later, John Middleton Murray never published it, and it was only Margaret Scott in 1972 that published it in Landfall. But in our edition, the two-volume edition, which I co-edited with Vincent O'Sullivan of the stories, because the edition is in 4 volumes covering all her works, every single piece of fiction that we found was put into chronological order, and so therefore Brave Love takes its rightful place in the scenario of all of Mansfield's stories and appears in exactly the right spot in 1915 when she wrote it. That's why it's now got its rightful place.
Right. Thank you. That's wonderful background, Gerri. Do you have any questions,
Oh,
John?
yes, of course.
John has some questions. I thought he might.
Yes. Now, of course, other editors have made comments, fairly negative comments, dismissing it as perhaps I've forgotten the exact wording. You know the kind of thing, though, don't you? It's.
Well, I can tell you. I mean, Anthony Albers called it a tedious, confusing story, and it is 12,000 words long. It's a real parody, I think, of her manner, as he says. And Claire Tomlin said that Valerie was a heartless and fascinating woman kept by a rich man, and she breaks the heart of an innocent Russian soldier. But the thing is, I can understand why it was never published. It makes no sense. The characters don't seem to be related to each other, and in 1915, would all these women and their lovers, together with a mother and a German waiter, and 2 strange South American brothers, all be living in the same house? And if Mitka is Russian, Paddy sounds Irish, and yet he's supposed to be his brother. I don't understand the story. She said, as you know, after she'd written it, she didn't quite understand where it came from. And frankly, all I can say is neither do I. You could call Valerie a tragic heroine, if you like, although other people might call her a cold, manipulative bitch. I'm not sure. I think the jury's out.
Tragic heroine.
Tragic heroine, says Valerie. And I notice in your notes that you do describe it as cinematic. And of course I think, someone else notices that. Do we know anything about Mansfield's work in the beginning film industry?
No, sadly we don't. I can understand why you call this cinematic. It's one of her longest stories. You know, 12,000 words long. It's significant. It's up there along with almost, you could call them novellas, Prelude and At the Bay. And that, I think, the longer stories do have that cinematic quality, and she divides them into scenes. Prelude and At the Bay are each divided into 12 scenes, as is The Daughters of the Late Colonel. This one isn't divided into 12, I think it's 5 or 6, isn't it? But dividing those stories, those longer ones, into scenes gives them a sort of cinematic feel, theatrical feel. There's been a couple of prominent scholars who have worked on discovering, if you like, what Mansfield was doing in those early years, early 12, 13, 14, 15, when she said she was a silent film extra. Sarah Sandley, who lives in Auckland, she wrote a wonderful article on Mansfield as a cinematic writer. And more recently, an Italian scholar called Maurizio Ascari has written a book on Mansfield and the cinema. But nobody has been able to trace the exact films that she was extra in. I mean, she even gave some clues. Apparently she was in one film where one of the female protagonists, falls off one of London's bridges. I can't remember which one. And you'd think that would be quite significant and that we'd be able to determine which film it was from that. But so far, nobody can categorically state. I mean, it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, to actually locate that silent film. And as you know, most of them are still around and you can still see them in specialist cinemas, etc. It'd be wonderful to actually catch Mansfield, a glimpse of Mansfield in a crowd scene. But I think one of her most brilliant stories, pictures, which tells the story of Miss Ada Moss, a contralto singer who's down on her uppers, as it were, relates very much. And she goes around various theatrical cinematic agencies looking for work as an extra to try and get a bit of money. And you see this sort of sleazy underworld of the cinema at that time, where the queues were round the block to try and get any sort of job as an extra, as a stand-in, whatever, in the cinema industry. And Mansfield portrays that beautifully. It's certainly one of my favourite stories, and I don't think that she could have written that story without personal experience of the industry that she was depicting.
Yes, I've read it recently. Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah, I'll talk later, I think, about how Brave Love made sense to me and us as a group filming it. But we picked up on the gap between rich and poor. That's with Evershed's behaviour and his status as a banker. And one of Paddy's statements is straight out the 2008 global financial crisis, and we discovered it as a modern story, running with it from there. I don't have my. I do have. Pass the script, please. Yeah, I'm just going to read that critical line because it's the favourite line from Brave Love, and I think I have it as scene 19. Excuse this little spontaneity here. Yes. This is Paddy. Now, I'm nearly all shell, Mitka. I couldn't keep open heart to the world like you do. I want to be powerful, that is rich and loved by my woman, and I just fight for those two things on the quiet and keep myself guarded against everything that can get in the way of them. So life's pretty simple for me.
Wow.
to me, that's every banker in 2008 on the make, and just sort of getting rich and revving up the economy to a collapse. We ran with that, and it's really built our interpretation around that.
Well, that was very prescient of Katherine Mansfield, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh, well, I mean, in terms of predicting the future, I mean, she outperformed Nostradamus. Absolutely.
You're right.
Yeah. Now, speaking of tragic heroines, Beryl and Valerie here both tell me that they consider themselves tragic heroines of a very high order.
Yeah, I'm of course Katherine Mansfield's greatest tragic heroine.
I think you're mistaken. Obviously, I am.
You have two men who love you.
Two doomed men.
Hey?
Oh? Well, look at you. You're the darling of the airwaves, Everybody loves you. Everybody's sucking up to you.
I'm surrounded by leering, flaky men and hungry starlets snapping at my heels.
Right, perhaps back to Gerri. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most beautiful tragic heroine of all?
Well, for me, it would have to be Beryl. I'm sorry, Valerie. I would have to say Beryl because Beryl is, for me, one of Mansfield's most fascinating female creations as a character. And I do see a lot of Mansfield in the character of Beryl. In the stories where she appears, she ends the stories, the focus, that final, if you like, that cinematic lens is focused on Beryl. the most important moments of the story, even in the Doll's House, if you remember. I mean, every New Zealander grows up reading the Doll's House, but think about Beryl's role in that. She's the one that shoos the little Kelvy children away, and then they run off, and then the littlest Kelvy girl turns to her sister and says, "I've seen the little lamp," one of the most famous lines in all of New Zealand literature. And Beryl's there. What more can I say? She's young, she's attractive, Harry Kimber is attracted by her, that male sleazebag, but Beryl eventually sees the light, understands that she needs to move on, as it were, and then in the Doll's House, she seems to have been attracted by yet another sleazebag who wants to get her to do something that she doesn't want to do. But I think Mansfield depicting Beryl, there is a certain sympathy for this young, unmarried woman stuck in a household that isn't her own, looking after a family that isn't her own, trying to find her own way in life. And I think she's a really, really fascinating character. And I think there's a lot more research and a lot more scholarship to be done on the character of Beryl, perhaps looking at her through Mansfield's eyes, maybe as a sort of pseudo-Mansfield character planted into the stories, maybe Keziah as a grown-up.
I concede.
She concedes. Perhaps we shall, since we have these here, let's at this point have our toast to 100 years of brave love. Yes. To tragic heroines, Beryl and all of them. Fine tragic heroines of the highest quality, Beryl, Valerie, Ada, all of them.
John, I think perhaps if we all shuffle in a bit closer.
Oh,
we can
okay.
make the scene a bit better. Can you guys shuffle in?
Yeah.
Yeah, see if we can all get in the frame a little bit, or at
Yes.
least almost.
Now, don't push Gerri back too far. No. He's teetering on the edge there.
It's still intimate. Okay, thanks for that. You're an absolute goldmine of knowledge, Gerri. There's some really fascinating things you've brought up, which I'm sure even people who are Mansfield enthusiasts wouldn't have known. John, did you want to talk about the making of? Or the adaptation?
Yes. What's happened with the adaptation? Again, triggered, I think, by Mansfield's very, very sharp, amazing. I see an amazing ability to observe human nature and capture it and describe it, and observe universal human nature. So, what she writes is relevant today. But I suppose, though, the rich man who we amplified as a villain, there was a lot in Brave Love, in spite of the length, that's only hinted at. For example, one scene in particular, it just says that Valerie explained to Mitka how she got to be Evershed's mistress, how she got to be in that situation. I think the wording is something like skipped over it lightly and said little enough, and I've got that wrong, but glossed over it and gave them only part of the story. So there's about 2 sentences for the whole of Valerie's backstory, and it's left to us to imagine it. So we did. What we did was Valerie's backstory. We had Evershed running. We have Evershed running a television show called Project Intern, and this is a business competition where people compete, and the prize is to work for Evershed as an assistant. A little bit of satire there. I won't go into any further detail. You can probably guess it. And of course, Valerie wins this. She wins it with a marketing campaign where all the slogans are, of course, wording taken from KM's work. So we had some fun with that. And particularly promoting Raoul Duquette's book, False Coins. Been through.
Yes. From Je ne parle pas français.
Yes, from Je ne parle pas français. Oh, I should have brought it along so you can see it. We have, of course, printed the cover, and Valerie wins her prize by writing the blurb to go on the back cover. That's the final competition and project intern. I'll read out what it is. It's a wonderful book blurb. It's from the journals. Every artist cuts off his ear and nails it on the outside of the door for others to shout into. Yes. So that sets Valerie off to Legado, which is our imaginary city that's suddenly become oil rich. It's from Gulliver's Travels. It's book 3, Gulliver's Travels. But what happens 300 years later when they start to strike oil, and every cowboy, including Evershed, is in there to make a buck and running his oil company there. So that gives us probably 20 minutes of film from Brave Love. We've got the whole of the garden party in there. It's a corporate promotional event put on as a party for the Legado royalty to attend, who get a lot of the original lines as the snobs. The industrial accident is a construction site accident. Along with the whole of the garden party, we brought in parts of the modern soul, the Baron. Some of the Baron finds his way into the ruler of Legado, and I spent 2 years going through reading everything I could with the idea that the Mansfield word count in here should be as high as possible. And what we have, we colour coded it as we went. So I'm trying to. Oh yes, I'll see if we can see this. You see here red text. Does it look red at all? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a direct quote, or very close to a direct quote from Brave Love. There's green text, which is direct quotes from other stories. There's blue text, which is strongly influenced by Mansfield and really edited as something she wrote. And black text that is my adaptation of the script. But I did a little count on this because I heard on the BBC they were interviewing Martin Amis, and he was complaining that when he was the celebrity scriptwriter on a film called Saturn III, the final script ended up as 10% his. So we thought, well, this script, what percentage is it KM's? In verbatim, that is dialogue that's an exact quote, it's 33%. And then if you consider the storyline, the influences and so on, it's well over 50%. So I'd therefore suggest that as a script source, KM is outperforming Martin Amis by 5 to 1.
Well, that's fascinating. I think you're right though. When you, I thought that was really clever to bring in a little bit of Raoul Duquette from Je ne parle pas français, because of course you can't talk about Brave Love without talking about Mansfield's personal life at the time. There is always a danger of reading biographical, making a biographical influence into a short story, which is fiction. But Brave Love was written at a time when Mansfield believed herself to be absolutely, passionately in love with Francis Capcom, a young French writer. And Je ne parle pas français, and the male protagonist in that, Raoul Duquette, is very heavily based on Francis Carco, the character, in real life. And so, the two, you very cleverly, I'm sure you knew that, which is why you brought his character into the story. And even Claire Tomlin, hardly anyone has ever mentioned this story. I don't know of, and I edit Katherine Mansfield Studies, which is the annual yearbook of the Katherine Mansfield Society. Please, everyone, join if you haven't. We're the best literary society in the known planet. So every year I co-edit with my colleagues this wonderful yearbook and we have scholarship, all sorts of different themes on Mansfield. I don't think anyone has ever even mentioned Brave Love. I think because it's such I agree with Alpes, I think it is a tedious and rather confusing story. It's certainly not one of her best, but there are elements of there that I think we now need to start looking at. In February, I'm going to mention this story again in February, on February the 20th, a group of people are convening in Gray, which is, where Mansfield went to Gray, near to the front, during the First World War. One of the first women, from out that wasn't already living there to do so, in order to have this liaison with Francis Carco. And that's 100-year anniversary is on February the 19th. And on February the 20th, the tourist office in this little town near Dijon are putting on 3 days of events, and the New Zealand ambassador to France, you won't believe his surname, is Mr. Kimber. I know, you couldn't make it up, is going to be there. And there's going to be a lunch with him and all sorts of things. So you're commemorating the 100th anniversary of Brave Love. Even the French are commemorating in less than a month's time, or no, just over a month's time, Mansfield actually meeting Francis Carco. 3 days of spectacular and events. So, for lots of people, these few weeks are pretty important.
Yep. Going for that connection, of course, Raoul Duquette makes a very brief appearance as a character in this movie at the very beginning. Evershed is running his show, and Raoul Duquette is the guest. And of course, it's his book, False Coins, that it's all about promoting. But we do have a brief clip of that, which we're now going to try to play. With all the listening audience, playing clips in one of these webcasts we've found to be a huge challenge, but we are now going to try to take it on. It's only about 10 seconds of these two running their show, and its purpose is partly technical. It shows how we film it with a green screen. And for logistical reasons, we couldn't get the two actors together at the same time. So you can actually see them filmed separately and then composited, i.e. collaged together to make a scene at the end.
You've had a preview of this, the new book, False Coins, from Raoul Duquette. What can you see to sell this?
What can you say to sell this?
You've had a preview of this, the new book, False Coins, from Raoul Duquette. What can you see to sell this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Gerri couldn't see the footage.
Of course,
but,
you couldn't see that, Gerri. I'll just describe him, but he's he looks. He went for a sleazy look, and we had various other lovely pieces of dialogue there. I should murder it by reading you a line or two. The No, I don't think the context works well enough. He says things like, can you do a French accent there, please?
Oh, this is a bit of Raoul Duquette. Zut alors! Oh, this is extraordinarily profound. Oh, must I cut off my ear to have you? Please excuse me.
Yes. Oh yes, that's in response to the quote before, nail the ear on the outside of the door for others to shout into. Yeah. I think we survived that. Well, the logistics, we're really making a mock epic. In terms of what we want to see on screen, it's ridiculously ambitious, and therefore it's difficult to know where to compromise, as in it's all been, nearly all of it has been filmed in a classroom, borrowed over the summer break, in front of a green screen. And it's then computer artwork that goes on in the background. I know it's been a matter of big debate, that artwork, whether it should be cartoony to keep it simple and excuse the low-budget aspect of the production. But these actors have been so dedicated. I started off intending to make a quite quick experiment, because I soon found myself with actors who were professionals and aspiring professionals and working on their craft. So that's pushed me to a much higher level. So that's probably delaying the release of it. I hope it releases in 2015, so it's still the centenary year, but it's likely to be the end of 2015. Which is another reason why we were so motivated to do the webcast tonight. So that.
Well, please do let me know when it's. If you can let me know when it's available, perhaps you'd allow us. I don't know what you're going to do to sort of promote it, but perhaps we could put it on the Katherine Mansfield Society website, which is the world's biggest hub for all information related to Katherine Mansfield.
I know it well. I know it well, of course. Yes. Yes, I'll probably get round to that application form any day now, Gerri. Yes, I do intend to join, and I agree. Well recommended. It looks great, the range of activity, and there seems to be there'd be a lot of scholarship going on, and a lot of events.
Yeah, and we've been at the forefront of promoting it. There was a fantastic conference in Paris last June, and scholars came from all over the world, to sort of join, because of course Mansfield spent so much time in Paris. She actually lived there for a short period of time with Murray, but then she was either passing to and from on her way to other journeys, and of course is buried just outside Paris, near Fontainebleau. So you can actually go and look at the various flats. You can see the hotels that she stayed in. So that was wonderful. And literally in 2 weeks' time, there's another conference in Sydney being held on Mansfield for young emerging scholars working on Mansfield. And in May, there's one in Chicago. It just goes on and on and on. People are becoming more and more interested in Mansfield and understanding what a brilliant, innovative writer she was, at the forefront of a sort of modernist creativity, and all New Zealanders should be so proud of her, because she really did go, literally speaking, where other writers hadn't gone before, and created something very special.
I've certainly been inspired by her writing, and this movie is a result. It'll start its release by being entered into film festivals.
Oh wow!
Yes, and then we'll attempt from that to, because of course there's a small chance of being picked up for commercial distribution if it goes well in film festivals. So it's probably held back from being openly seen on websites until it's.
When do you think it will be finished by?
I'm now aiming for November of this year, and then I'll be, as that approaches, I'll be looking for film festivals to enter it into. I'm thinking at the moment ones that could be described as alternative, that specialise in showcasing low budget and experimental work. In England, there's one called the Zero Film Festival. Yes, which means zero budget. You have to pay for it yourself without commercial funding to be eligible, and that runs in London and Liverpool. So that's there's one in New York called the Literati Film Festival, which is themed on again low budget experimental work based on literature. So it's festivals like that. You tend, when you pay the £50 to £100 to enter one of the big ticket film festivals, to not get selected. So there's a bit of strategy there. I'll fill in entry forms for a few of those, but it's very. I've not had a good track record of success with that kind of approach.
I do wish you the best of luck with it, and hopefully we'll get to see it at some point, maybe at a future Mansfield conference once it's all done. We could invite you to come and give us a special screening or something like that, if it's in New Zealand. So yeah, that would be wonderful. It'd be lovely to see.
Yeah. To have a chance of a commercial run and to appear in film festivals, the rule is it can't appear openly and for freely on the internet. I imagine it will after a few years, but a private screening that's not open for the whole internet world, that there's no problem with that. That can easily be arranged. Now, also on the making of, we have another toast here. A very interesting situation and quite a journey is copyright clearance. You say it's an unusual story that was first published in 1972, and that means that it's still under copyright in some countries. My researchers make it a definite for the UK and Australia, with quite a complicated question mark over a few others. I think I've proved that it's clear in New Zealand, so we're quite okay playing it in New Zealand, although of course we've had the restriction of like publicity and material on the public internet visible in the UK or Australia. But
Mansfield's copyright Mansfield's copyright is really complicated. The first 2 volumes of the collected works of Katherine Mansfield, the negotiations over the stories took Edinburgh University Press several months of negotiation because of a lot of it, I think, was to do with her husband, John Middleton Murray, because he kept selling manuscripts as and when he needed something, or a new tractor for his farm, or something. And I'm not saying they were justified, and of course he had them. So if you'd had some of Mansfield's scripts and you needed some money, you might have felt like you wanted to sell something. But of course what it means is that there are all these various third parties that feel that they have own a copyright, and I think it was several months of protracted negotiation before we were able to go ahead, with the publication. Luckily, Vincent O'Sullivan and I didn't have to do that. That was done for us by Edinburgh University Press. But it would have been a minefield, otherwise. And, very similar things for the other volumes. Mansfield's copyright situation is really, really tricky. I know the Society of Authors, I think they could almost spend their whole time just doing Mansfield. And they look after an awful lot of very, very famous authors. And I know they do the most fantastic job. And they don't have limitless amounts of funds, and they don't have limitless numbers of staff. And I think sometimes, you do have to wait your turn. But Mansfield's copyright situation for them must be one of their biggest headaches. And I think they do a brilliant job negotiating it.
Yes, well, you say you're it's Edinburgh University staff who do the negotiations. For this film, I do those negotiations. I started 2 years ago. The film is particularly difficult. I've had to do a lot of explaining about alternative cinema and, if you like, the new cinema coming from the democratisation of filmmaking. And I'm not a Hollywood producer, and I'm something very different. I've taken the line that I'm really like a boutique publication and a boutique academic publication. It just happens to be done with a video camera instead of the printing press, because that's the 21st century. So for the main film itself, I think we're close to an agreement, and that has been going well the last few months. Tonight's webcast, well, I started on that in November, and yes, we do have a license for what we're doing right now. That really was worked out very easily and pleasantly. I think the informal nature of this was much more obvious to them right from the beginning. And of course, we're only quoting in a small way from the work. So part of the condition of tonight's webcast was to give an acknowledgement in the credits or something equivalent. We don't actually have credits, so I thought we'd have a toast to the Society of Authors for being kind to independent, alternative, no-budget filmmakers and generally getting it for us. Having dealt with so many rights holders, I know you say that it's difficult and convoluted, but I would say they've been one of the best. often detailed, obviously working through a lot of difficulty and a lot of issues, and you shed some more light on that, but I think always willing to work something out and work something out fairly. So our thanks to the Society of Authors, and here's to the UK Society of Authors. And I'm now going into playing 2 clips. We'll play them in sequence. I filmed Brave Love in 1981. I feel it was one of the first films I ever made, and I held back from playing it in public, although as a result of one private screening, it was the top New Zealand amateur movie of 1981. Yes, and this I think is probably one of the best scenes. I'm going to play what we call scene 21. This is Millie and Valerie, who are getting intense about talking about Mitka and doing very much what's the modern term? Besties.
BFFs.
What?
BFFs.
BFFs. Best friends forever. They're BFFs scene. And so we're going to see the 1981 version, and then we're going to see a rough cut of our 2015 version.
I'm not at all awake yet.
Well, it's high time you were. It's after 11 o'clock. Hey, here's a letter for you.
Oh, you're an angel. We didn't get in till 4. Went to that idiotic club.
So it's still going on, is it?
What? I mean, Mitka's letters.
Yeah. Email from Australia. There's been a lot of those here lately. Do you read them?
Well, what am I to do? I can't stop him. I've written and told him it's hopeless until I'm tired.
Oh.
What are you laughing at?
You. I'm laughing at you. Putting on an act for me. I know perfectly well you're up to some game with Mitka. I'd love to know what it is. He's a queer little creature. I'm sure that if you'd told him to stop writing, he wouldn't write. He's too proud and sensitive to do otherwise. Well, I don't believe you've told him. Surely you're not in love with him, so why tease him that you are?
Oh, I don't know. I just don't know. But once I've touched a thing, I can't let it go until I've tried to break it or to see if it can break me. It's my one principle, snatched from a weary world. Like to read it with me?
No. I hate hearing things being killed. And babies cry worse than pigs. I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Ah, Millie, you're a lifesaver. I'm not at all awake yet.
Well, it's high time you were. We've got a meeting soon. One of those real ones that you live for.
We didn't get in till 4 a.m. Guests of honour at one of the Academy's idiotic receptions.
Would that be a Mitka text?
It's text counselling.
If anyone needs counselling, it's you. But I have my doubts about Mitka as a provider.
Well, what am I to do? I can't stop him. I've texted back that it's hopeless until I'm tired. It's all very well for you. Innocent clumsiness can be rather delightful when you're with a person. Charming eyes and a baby mouth can carry it off. But by text, oh dear no! What are you laughing at?
You, I'm laughing at you, putting on some act for me. I know perfectly well you're up to some game with Mitka, and I'd love to know what it is. If you had told him to stop texting you, he would. He's too proud and sensitive not to. Well, I don't believe you have told him. But you're not in love with him, so why tease him that you are?
I don't know. I just don't know. But once I've touched a thing, I can't let it go until I've tried to break it or to see if it can break me. It's my one principle snatched from a weary world. Like to read it with me?
No, I hate hearing things being killed, and babies cry worse than pigs. Bon appetit, vampire lady.
Say testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing. So just before we wind up, Gerri, one particular theme with Brave Love is, and with Katherine Mansfield in various series, is the cry against corruption. And it's particularly poignant in our modern times, more than ever, as I'm sure we're aware. Out of Katherine Mansfield's stories, which stories do you think that sort of theme is strongest?
Well, as you know, the story she wrote that in a letter to John Middleton Murray, and she was referring at the time to Je ne parle pas français, which she'd just written, and which she said was based on Carco, and she named some other writers as well. I think Gertler was one of the people that she mentioned. But, I think the other story that she wrote about Francis Carco was An Indiscreet Journey, which detailed that journey to Grey, to the front, of World War during World War One, and she wouldn't allow that to be published in her lifetime. I think because of its.
Oh, it's frozen.
Yes. Yes. What is that? Oh no! Oh, it's Mitka. Yes. Yes. Hello.
Oh, hang on, John. Gerri, can we just your footage just froze for about 30 seconds. So we lost a little bit of what you were talking about.
Hi Artul, we're just going to join you in now.
And now John's just gotten a call from one of the cast, so we might have to cross. We might have to. Yes, I think so. Yes, I think it is.
Yes.
So are we going to take this call, John?
Yes, we are indeed.
Okay. Please hold that thought, Gerri. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Is that Artul? Hi Artul, yes, we're on air, and Artul plays Mitka in Brave Love. Now I'm trying to remember my questions for you. Right? Do you think that that the affair with Valerie would be the best thing that ever happened to Mitka, or the worst thing that ever happened to Mitka, or do you think it's a mix of both?
I think it's a mix of both, because when he met Valerie in the starting, he was so much in love with her. And it was a beautiful feeling for him, which he was quite liking it. And then later on, when after that incident in Sloan, or the ship happened, and Valerie left, that time he might have felt that, oh no, I was wrong. So it was mix of both. I'll say it was mix of both. Yes.
And I'll just ask Valerie. Do you think that the love story between Valerie and Mitka was the best thing that ever happened to Mitka, the worst, or a bit of both?
The best.
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think Mitka's a believable character? Do you feel that there are people like that? Did you feel that when you were playing him?
Absolutely. I honestly think that there are lots of people who are like Mitka, who thinks like Mitka. And it's completely a believable character. They work hard, they love, and then sometimes have to do things which they have to go in a different way to do those things. So it is quite a believable character.
And we have Evershed here, right here. Have you got anything to say to him?
Evershed, I don't like you.
I only said that before you were my son.
He did the character, he did the fighting well. But yeah, overall, I still don't like you, Evershed.
Is that why you didn't come tonight?
As a character.
I can only presume so.
Okay, thank you, Hartel.
Right, sorry for the unexpected cross there, Gerri. Should we get back to
Yes.
Gerri's? Yeah, and hopefully Gerri's feed to us won't get frozen this time as well. So we might as well go back to the beginning. So I was just asking Gerri, out of Katherine Mansfield's stories, one of the recurring themes is the cry against corruption, which is particularly relevant in Brave Love, of course, and is one of the main themes of our adaptation of it. But it pops up a few times, and I was asking Gerri, which of Katherine Mansfield's stories do you think that's perhaps the most important theme, or the other stories that it pops up in?
Well, it depends. I mean, we don't really know what Mansfield meant by that cry against corruption. It's such a vague statement. What does it actually mean? She wrote it. When she wrote it, she was talking about je ne parle pas français, and I think there are clear signs of corruption there. I mean, Raoul Duquette is a really, really complex, difficult, sleazy. The word sleazy springs to mind when you think about Raoul Duquette. And so it's... and the way that he treats the females in that book, especially Mouse, the young female character there, who is treated abominably by all the men, really. And that is quite see. So if you think about it from a gender perspective, it might be the way that women are treated by men. And that's a theme that occurs frequently. Think about Beryl in At the Bay, and think about Harry Kimber, and the way that he tries to use her just for sexual gratification. There's no hint that he's in love with her, or that he's going to leave Mrs. Harry Kimber for Beryl. It also comes up in The Doll's House. Think about Ada Moss in Pictures, as we were discussing earlier on. At the end of that story, there is a hint, it's not explained in detail, that in order to make money, Ada Moss is going to have to prostitute herself. You know, those final lines where the gentleman who buys her a drink says to her, well, am I going your way, or are you coming mine? And she says, well, I think I'll go with you. What is she going to do with this man? It's left to our imagination. There are all sorts of stories where that sort of element is there, and that, women sort of fighting this sort of male corrupting influence. I don't want to read too much into it, because as I say, I think Mansfield's initial, that sort of quote is so vague, and it's so vaguely expressed in the letter. It could mean anything. And at the time, she was going through a difficult time with Murray as well, so there could be a sly dig at him. Mansfield's mind was very complex at the best of times, and so she could have been meaning so much, and things that we don't really know about. It's a fascinating sort of phrase with multiple meanings, I think.
And I think we've done our 1 hour webcast as planned, and I think that's a very good point that we can end on, because I know for me the phrase cry against corruption sent my imagination going on relating to political events, social events, especially taking up characters like Evershed, who's a banker, and with that,
I think she's gone.
Yes, yes. I think we had the.
The line dropped, but I am now back.
Yes. Oh, great. So
just go back a couple of sentences.
Yes, I was just saying that the cry against corruption was something. Well, I thought I knew what it meant, and that it certainly started a train of thought in relating Mansfield's writing to today's social issues, especially the growing gap between rich and poor. But I see that at the Doll's House, where the children are reflecting that happening with their parents, and in the garden party.
I think that's a good point. I can't see you, by the way, like I used to. I can just see a still photograph of John. I can't see anyone anymore, but it doesn't bother me if it doesn't bother you.
That's all right. Yes, I'm. It's kind of technical, but I'm using a cell phone for your internet, so you're not competing on my phone line with the webcast. So I have a feeling it's running out of its allocated ration or something like that. But so I'll say with the cry against corruption, I think we've agreed it's an important theme, and I hope it's well accepted when our movie comes out that we've taken it and as a train of thought and run that train around down quite a few tracks, including some current and modern ones.
Well, it sounds fascinating. I know we'll all really look forward to seeing how that plays out on the in your film.
Oh, well, thank you. And I believe we've had I felt it really important to actually mark this 100 years with some sort of event, and it's gone really well. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you, Gerri, and thank you to everyone here for attending. Yes.
Yeah. You still can't see us, can you, Gerri? No, she can't see us. Okay.
Yes, that's much point in that.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So thank you, Gerri, and good night. And
thank you. Bye.
Bye. And it's good night from Gerri, and it's good night from us.
Good night.
Thank you for watching, and it's been great to pioneer webcasting.